Ta-da-da. Hi guys, it's Carrie. It is a lovely rainy day here in Seoul and I'm refilming this video. I filmed this once before and it was too long, and so I'm deciding to change a few things. I have read 10 books so far this year, and in 2020, like I promised you guys, I want to do more book content. And so I was excited to talk about the books that I've been reading, but unfortunately, the books that I've read so far this year have left me a little underwhelmed. I just haven't read a really good book except for a couple which I will talk about. So usually when I talk about the books that I've read in a given amount of time, I talk about them in a chronological order. You know, I love that. But instead, I'm actually going to talk about them in my least favorite to most favorite. And I've read a lot of mediocre books, so just the few that are kind of in the middle that I didn't love, I didn't hate. I'm just going to talk about them really quickly so that I can talk more in detail about the two extreme ends of the spectrum. And so we're going to start with the worst first, and I'm honestly really scared to talk about this one because it was suggested to me by a lot of you guys. My candle is really going pretty wild over there. You good? Okay, well, we'll just keep an eye on that. It was a book that was suggested to me by a lot of you guys. A lot of you said it was your favorite book of all time. This is a book that is about mental health and trauma, and I remember when I talked about not really enjoying The Bell Jar by Sylvia Plath, I got a lot of feedback that was basically like, you didn't like it because you have never experienced depression. And you didn't like it because you must be so mentally healthy, which I think is so wildly wrong. Like, people who have suffered from sexual abuse don't all have to like books about sexual abuse. If you suffered through depression, you don't need to like every book about depression. And when I read the Goodreads reviews about the book I'm about to talk about, the people who, like me, said that they didn't really like it faced the same criticism on Goodreads. Like, there were so many people who were like, well, you just clearly didn't get it. You've never experienced hardship in your life or whatever. And I think that that's a really bad mindset. And so please don't leave. You can think that, whatever, but just please don't comment that down below, because it really, like, those comments about The Bell Jar, like, still I think about them all the time, and it just really makes me so upset. So that being said, Eleanor Oliphant is completely fine. I didn't like it. I'm so sorry. Eleanor Oliphant is completely fine is about one woman, Eleanor Oliphant, who you find throughout the book, without giving any too much away, she's been through a very traumatic time. She has been through something that has really affected every aspect of her life, like the way that she lives her life, the way that she interacts with people, the way that she interacts like with herself. It's difficult to see the world through her eyes because it's honestly almost annoying, and she's written to be that way. Like, she's a difficult person. Her circumstances have just made her that way, and that's not necessarily why I didn't like the book. I actually thought that the whole idea of the book was really brilliant, and the last part, if you've read it, you know, the part that kind of like really changes things, we realize something, don't want to give spoilers, brilliant. Like, that saved the whole book for me. I genuinely thought that the book idea was wonderful, but just for me, I thought that it was a little slow and a little long. You see her like open up and her personality start to change slowly, but I felt like there were just parts that were so drawn out. Kind of like this video where I try and explain things. I draw things out so much. I thought the idea was brilliant, but just the pacing made it not an enjoyable read. That's my feeling about it. I'm sorry if you really love that book. I understand why people really love it, but it just wasn't for me. So sorry, Eleanor. But yeah, there we go. Got that one out of the way. And then the last one I'm gonna kind of talk about in detail, I guess, is Practical Magic. This was another one that I thought I was really gonna love. It's like a beloved book. It's like a pretty popular book, and it follows this family, this long line of women who have powers, let's just say, lived in this town for so many generations that they're just known in this town for being odd. And I really liked the beginning, But once it started to go into like the next generation, I think I've mentioned this before, I don't really like books that span multiple generations of one family. And so once like the girls in the story grew up and then they had kids and then we follow that kind of thing, like they move out, all this stuff, I wasn't as into it anymore. So yeah, I was just kind of very much let down by Practical Magic. But if you liked it or you're interested in it, hold on, because at the end there's a book that I genuinely really liked that I read this month that reminds me so much of Practical Magic, and I thought it was a little bit better. So hold on for that, but let me just briefly go through the mediocre ones. Very first book that I read, first week of January, The Winter Soldier by Daniel Mason. It takes place in Vienna, Austria, and then kind of like Eastern Europe during World War I. It follows a doctor and he works in one of the hospitals. It follows him and then he meets this nun/nurse. It's basically just a war story. There's romance. Yeah, another one, 9 Perfect Strangers by Leanne Moriarty. I loved Big Little Lies. It was the last book that I read of 2019. 9 Perfect Strangers is about 9 people who all go to this like wellness retreat. Takes place in Australia, like most of her novels. So it's like 10 days, I think, of no social media, no phones. They're on all these weird diets. They do meditation and like morning hikes. It's another thriller, so you know there's gonna be like a couple twists and turns. It was just kind of blah, but it was good, like especially if you're going on an airplane. That's when I read it. Great, quick page turner. Yes. The Secrets We Kept by Laura Prescott. I actually quite enjoyed this book. It is about, it follows mainly one woman who gets a job, she believes, as a typist for this government agency, the CIA. It soon turns out that they're kind of training her to be an agent, and she ends up being trained by this other woman who she forms this really great relationship with. And yeah, she becomes a spy. Basically, there's definitely a twist, and it definitely halfway through becomes more of a romance story. So don't go into it thinking this is going to be about like badass spy chicks, because it's not. But it is, but it's not. But I did just enjoy it, and I thought the ending was really nice. I thought the way that they ended it was really great. So yeah, The Secrets We Kept. Conversations with Friends by Sally Rooney. I don't really get the hype about this book. It also just wasn't my kind of story. It basically follows mainly Frances and then her best friend / ex-girlfriend. She is a poet, and together they do like spoken word performances, and then they end up meeting this photographer and her actor husband, and it basically just follows kind of this hunk of time, this like strange relationship that they all form, like all 4 of them. And I don't know, it just like wasn't really my style. Also, it was a little confusing because she doesn't use quotation marks. It just wasn't my style of book. Wilder Girls by Rory Power. Oh god, this was a bad one to read right now. So as you guys probably know, there's a virus going on all over the world, and this book is about a virus that kills people all over the world. And so it was just like not, I read it on the airplane going to Japan, and it was like right when the virus really started getting kind of a big deal in Korea, and so it just felt very surreal to be reading about a kind of epidemic while I was like living in an epidemic. It was very weird. Basically, Wilder Girls is about a boarding school, like an all-girls boarding school on this island off of Maine. There's just this strange virus that just starts happening to like girls just start dying, or they'll like grow. They basically like start to become nature almost. The nature of the island starts to get really weird, like the bears start to get really big. It's the kind of book that even though the story itself didn't blow me away, it made me really want a sequel, and I think that that's a good indication of a good book if you want to know more. So yeah, I thought the imagery was really cool. Yeah, Wilder Girls, it was once again a very quick read because you just wanted to find out what was happening. So yes, Wilder Girls. Okay, and so for my top 3 books, I want to actually like get into it and talk about them in detail. And this one was really difficult to read. It was a book that I almost didn't want to finish, not because it was bad, but because it was so hard to read. It is Theyre They by Tommy Orange. It follows multiple characters in the Native American community in Oakland, California. They don't live on the reservation. All these people are just like living in the city of Oakland. They're all fictional characters, but you can tell that they're definitely written based loosely on true events. You hear a lot about the problems that, well, you actually don't hear a lot about it, but like you occasionally hear about the problems that the Native American community faces, like the incredibly high amount of suicide, the like incredibly high amount of alcoholism, drug abuse. But to read it and have it be happening to so many people. Each chapter follows a different character, and at first I thought they were just going to be like little singular vignettes, but actually it does all come together at the end and you almost wish it didn't, but it taught me so much. I highly suggest it if you are, especially if you are American, if you're Canadian, if you are living in a country where the land was stolen from other people who were there before. It's, yeah, really, really difficult to read. Zero happy ending. Honestly, very little hope, but really important to read, I think. So yeah, I would, if you can get your hands on it, Theyre They by Tommy Orange. My second favorite read of the year so far. This is the one that I would compare to Practical Magic, and it is Winterwood by Shay Earnshaw. Once again, follows this kind of family, this multi-generational line of women who all show various powers, I guess you would say, and they have lived in this mountain town for a very long time. So once again, the community kind of knows them, and there are like all these urban legends about them, and you know. And we mainly follow the youngest, newest member of this long line of women. We hear the story from her side, but also from Oliver's side, and Oliver is a boy who goes to the all-boys camp that is basically like where trouble boys go to like become well-behaved men. During this really big snowstorm, one boy goes missing, and that boy is Oliver. And this isn't a spoiler because it happens in the first chapter, but the girl is out walking in the woods and finds him, and it's all very strange. Like things just are weird from the get-go. I just thought it was really well written and really interesting. I could so easily visually picture everything that was happening, and even though it's like a teeny bit predictable, there are parts that I didn't think of and I wouldn't have thought of. So it's still, even though I kind of got the ending by the middle point, there were still parts that kind of threw me for a loop. So yeah, if you are interested in that. Also, she also includes excerpts from like the spell book. Each little story about all of her ancestors is just so interesting, and all of the spells are so charming. And so if you're just interested in that, I think that, yeah, I just thought that it was really lovely, and I really liked it. So Winterwood by Shay Earnshaw. And last but not least, my favorite book that I read this year is Everything I've Never Told You. Everything I Never Told You, Everything I Have Never Told You. Look at that, I can't even. You guys all suggested this. I had started Little Fires Everywhere a while ago, and I couldn't get into it. I think it just wasn't the right time. Like, I'll read it eventually and probably love it. I wasn't really interested in reading her other work, but you guys were like, you need to read this, it's so you, pick it up. So I did, and I did really like it. And this isn't a spoiler because it's literally the opening sentence of the book, but it is about a girl who goes missing and she is actually dead. And the book starts the morning that she goes missing, and we kind of see the search party and everything happening, but it also goes back and we learn about her mother and her father and their relationship, and why her mother is the way that she is, and why her father is the way that he is, and why that affected how they raised their daughter, and how that really affected who she became, and why her brother is the way that he is, and why her little sister is the way that she is. And it's just so interesting how like no person is an island. Like you're affected by so many things in your life, and I just found it to be really beautifully written, and I appreciated that each character had like a deep, I don't know, like it actually went into the reasons why people were the way that they were and why they did the things that they did. The mom wasn't a bad mom, the dad wasn't a bad dad, but they like had these reasons for being sort of imperfect, I guess, even though you kind of know from the get-go that, you know, she passes away, the girl that we're searching for. I don't know, it gave me a lot to think about. So yeah, thank you so much for suggesting that book. That was my saving grace of the 2 months that I've been trying to find a really good book, so thank you so much. And I'm currently reading Educated by Theyre, scribbled her last name, which is about a woman who was raised in a cult-ish environment. I don't know if it's a bigger cult, but basically I'm at the point where her father is a unique individual and believes certain things, and so she's raised like she never went to school, she doesn't go to the doctor, that kind of thing. And eventually she breaks out of that and has to kind of become educated again and like enter the real world. So yeah, I'm excited to read that. So far so good, but I haven't read much of it yet. That's what I'm gonna do for the rest of the day. And so yeah, I'm sorry that a lot of the books that I read were sort of mediocre this month. I almost considered not posting this video, but I do want to share, even if I'm not reading great books, I do want to talk about them. So I will link all those down below. I will link my Goodreads as always. Yeah, is that all? Yeah. Once again, sorry, but I hope you still enjoyed, and I would really appreciate any and all of your suggestions. Once again, you guys usually turn me on to really great reads. I will talk to you guys later. Thank you so much for watching. And yeah, I'll talk to you guys next time. Bye!